Guys, pumped to be on the call with you guys tonight. Little bonus action after our Q&A last week. And then remember the week before, we were talking about not rushing the process. And this is today, like the bonus, this really goes into how important it is that you guys, when you guys are filling out those forms, like it helps so much because there was so much good stuff in there that just helped me see things. And it helps me come up with more solutions to help you guys. And so there was a lot of deep field information on that, more than just the Q&A stuff we went over last week. There was a lot of things on some of the struggles that you guys are dealing with. And as I was kind of like organizing, going through those, I was even going through and comparing it because I had sent that same exact form out like 6 weeks prior. And so I was going through and in comparing some of your previous answers for those of you who have done both to the most recent one. And that helped me then see more. And so I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to go and start organizing through some of these and start attacking some of the common struggles that I'm seeing with many of you because if you can feel like oh, I'm the only one going through it, and the reality is, man, there's a lot of you dealing with the exact same struggles. So we should be chatting about that. We should be talking about it, right? We want to improve. That's the point of the entire program. So let's dive into that today. And the most common one was consistency. And so I really want to challenge you guys just to lock in with me here for like 15 minutes. I don't want to take up a ton of your time on a Wednesday night this week, but I want to give us some really solid things to think about and tie back into some of our past teachings so you can continue to grow. Okay. So it's always centered around on our internal world, right? And why consistency can feel so hard sometimes. And I want to start this kind of theme off with almost every single person in here struggles with the consistency. I struggle with consistency at times too. It's something that I've had to learn to see differently. I have had to redefine it of what I think it actually means. And it's consistency has nothing to do, you guys, with you being capable. It has nothing to do with you don't know what to do. But because most people misunderstand what consistency actually is, when I look at the check-in forms over and over again, I see the same things we struggle with consistency. I see like vacations, like Kyle was just talking about, the work stuff interfering with his consistency, his home being remodeled, kids, camping, travel, lack of motivation, busy schedules. Those are all of the consistencies that I'm seeing with the lack of inconsistencies. Okay. So I want us to realize that underneath every one of these struggles that you guys expressed to me, underneath every one of these struggles, there's the same thing. Okay. And today I want to challenge you with the way we think about consistency because I don't believe consistency is a behavioral problem. I actually believe it's an identity problem. Okay. So think about that. I want you to hold on to that as we go here. Okay. Consistency is, I think, revealed more so than created. Okay. Most people think consistency is something they need to build when life is easy. And I disagree with that. Okay. Consistency is created when life actually gets hard. It's revealed when life gets hard. Anybody can eat chicken and rice when you're motivated, right? Anybody can hit the gym when they're feeling good and motivated. Anybody can get up, especially when you're getting 8 hours of sleep. Everything's going perfect. Anybody can stay on plan when they have no temptations or nothing else going on, right? But the question is, who are you when life doesn't cooperate? When everything does get busy, when life does get hard? Because that's the exposed, the triggered you. The real you isn't who you are on your best day. The real you is who shows up on some of our hardest days, on some of our most humbling days, right? And that's the hard part. But here's the piece, you guys. Without that, truth isn't revealed to us on the things that are going on internally. Think about this. A drug addict is always clean when he's in jail or when he's in, a rehab center, because the atmosphere around him doesn't allow the struggle, right? If the identity and how he sees himself doesn't change, when he goes back to life outside of there, when the environment gets tough again, right? That's when we can struggle again or not. And so the real test is when we're struggling, not when things are going good. And so we have to look at, how am I viewing the struggle? Am I really using it to grow? Right? So I want you to reflect on this. When life gets difficult, who do you become? Not what do you do, who do you become? Okay? Do you become a negotiator? Do you become a victim? Everybody's different. Do you become a procrastinator? Do you disappear? Do you make up excuses? Or do you remain the same man or woman regardless of the circumstances? So write that down if you want. Take note of that. Who do you become when your situation gets hard? I want you to take note of that, okay? That's homework number one. So we got to stop looking at the surface problems, which are all the things that I listed above. Okay. We actually need to stop looking at all of those so deeply. And this week, some of you struggle with the travel. Some of you struggle with meal prep. Some of you struggle with motivation, struggle with time, right? But the real question is, who does your identity and why does your identity change every time that your circumstances do? Right? Because if your standards only exist when life is convenient or good, those actually aren't your standards. They're more so a preference, right? I prefer to be this way when everything's going great, but when everything's not going great, I I prefer to be this way, but it's not working out. So think about our standards. What's the standard that we really want for ourselves? If your standards only exist when life is convenient or easy, they're not really standards. They're just a preference. Okay. I heard this story. I was watching this documentary and it was like this. I can't remember who was being interviewed. It's an NFL guy, but he played for Michigan. And you guys know the rivalry between Michigan and Ohio State. And he's like, dude, when I went to Michigan, it was such this huge wake up call to a new standard. And he was like, oh, I went into the weight room and they lined up the weights. The strength coaches were like, no, we line up the weights when we put them on the bar like this. And you guys know on the weights it says standard, like that brand. And he goes, they would line the weights up a certain way. And he was like, dude, why does it matter? It's the same weight. And the strength coach was like, this is the standard. And they lined up a certain way. And then he was like, dude, they couldn't even walk in the weight room without the Michigan blue on. And then it was they couldn't even go in the weight room if they didn't have a specific white lace. And the freshman can't figure this out. And he's like, dude, I just like, why does all this shit matter? And then he finally figured out after his freshman year that he goes, when we're lined up on the line against Ohio State and the whole crowd's going crazy and I can't mess up, I've already created the standard of excellence in everything. And it was all the way down to the shoelaces. And it sounds extreme when we're talking about it, but we have to create some sort and some type of a standard in your own life of how you operate regardless of the circumstance. When it's 4th and 3 and you got to get the first down or the game's over, what's the standard so you don't jump off sides? Right? And that pulls us out of the emotional decisions and into your standard of living. This changes the game for all of us. And so there's guys, there's days that I don't want to train. There's days that I don't want to create content. There's days that I don't want to answer questions or messages. You know what I mean? There's days I want to stay comfortable. The difference is that I don't feel different than you guys when you're having your struggle days. The difference is that most of the time I've stopped asking my feelings for the permission of what I do. And my wife can tell you story and story. My wife we've been together since we were 16. She's got so many stories she could ruin me. Like she's got so many in the amount of times that I've wanted to quit and that I did quit for a minute or for a day or whatever it is, right? Like even this week, I'm like breakdown of like this isn't gonna work. Like you have there's moments of that, but it's what we decide to do in the moments. Do we do we go back? Do we quit? Do we run away? Do we go off our standard? Or do we have a moment you get aware with what you're saying and what you're feeling? You go for a walk and you go back to the standard. That's why it's so important that you create the standard and then live life so the consistency is revealed in you. Otherwise, it's just pretend you didn't create anything. It has to be revealed in you. That's the power of the lived experience. So we've all lived through the lies, right? I'll be consistent when life gets easier. I'll be consistent when my kids get older. I'll be consistent when hunting season's done or when summer's over, when travel ball's done, right? All the stuff we've all lived through it. But guys, life never settles down. Ever. It never slows down and it never will. Okay? So the version of you're trying to become doesn't live in the perfect season. He lives or she lives in the season right now. The season that you're in isn't delaying your transformation as much as you might have believed that lie of when it's easier, I can do this. The season you're in is the transformation, you guys. Remember, transformation is longevity. We 6 weeks of that we talked about it. Transformation is the longevity of this. The season you're in is the transformation. Don't miss it. Live beyond average. Live is a present tense. It's not lived or I'll start living. Live present now, right? So this then keeps us from breaking promises to ourselves, right? This is where things get uncomfortable. Every time you tell yourself you're going to do something and then you don't do it, you teach yourself that's your standard, right? But the same then is the opposite. Every time you do, more is revealed. Every small decision, more is revealed. Okay, so here's the exercise. Relock in with me here. What promise have you repeatedly broken to yourself? Something just popped in your head. I want you to mark that down in your head, write it down. What promise have you repeatedly broken to yourself? Okay, and what would happen if you actually just kept that promise for the next 7 days? For the next week, what would happen? Okay. So consistency isn't about perfection. That doesn't mean you go 3 days, you mess up, and then, oh, no, it's not about perfection. Consistency is not even about never missing a workout or never missing off of your standard. Consistency isn't always feeling motivated. It's it's just returning, you guys, again and again and again and again, no matter how many times you fail or fall. It's probably the better word. There's really not such thing as a fail. Okay. The average person falls and decides that they're failing, but the transforming person falls and just returns again to the standard. Okay. I want to leave you with this one question as we're almost done here. What if consistency isn't something that you build? What if consistency is simply the byproduct of deciding who you actually are? You know what? For those of you who've been in here for a while, I've been talking about identity for over a year. June of last year is when we started talking about this. So, what if consistency isn't something that you build, but it's simply the byproduct of deciding who you are? Because the future version of yourself isn't more motivated, he isn't luckier or less busy. Okay. He has simply stopped negotiating with the things he said mattered. And maybe this week, the goal isn't to be perfect. Maybe the goal is just to become a man whose word means something. And that's to yourself, right? Not to me, because we can get that mistake in here because I'm coaching, right? I'm mentoring in a way. You're not doing things, you're not logging food, crushing your workouts to impress me. I am already impressed by every one of you, just so you know that. And you don't need that validation either. But know that I'm not here pouring my heart out for you guys because I don't already believe in you, right? I really do. So it's also not your wife. It's also not your kids. It's to yourself. Now, byproduct is hopefully, yes, obviously we want to be great examples to our wives, kids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But until we live the standard to ourselves, it'll never embody the way that we actually desire it to embody as men and women in here. Okay, there's an importance in that. Okay, so the practice for this week is that those questions, right? And the main one is where in your life are the circumstances deciding who you become? Essentially, that was the question. Okay, and what promises or what promise, I shouldn't say that plural, what promise are you keeping yourself for the next 7 days? Okay, so where in your life are the circumstances deciding who you become? And what promise will you keep to yourself for the next 7 days? Okay. That's that's the big piece. Is there any questions that I can serve you guys with while I got you? That was awesome, you guys. Anything? Anybody? Anybody need anything? Touch point on that? Okay. I'll post up this recording so you can re-listen. You guys, we're gonna stay on this course. I got more on this stuff. So we're going to dive into more of this in the coming weeks. But so I suggest probably going back and re-listening to the Don't Rush the Process from 2 weeks ago. And if you need to go back and listen to any of the longevity ones or the identity one from last week, it's on my YouTube channel. It's on the masterclass and trainings tab. Okay. You can go all the way back and check out some of those. If I went back and listened to it, I'd probably laugh because we all grow and expand, right? Like that's the funny thing is you go back and listen to old teachings, you're like, oh, that's good. I probably have more to say on that now. But that's the point. I'm growing right with you guys. And so I'm glad that you guys are on the journey with me. It's going to be a fun one. It already has been a fun one. And let's keep going. I appreciate you guys jumping on a Wednesday night on the whim. You know, I just announced the call 2 days ago. So big turnout tonight for a quick turnaround. So appreciate you guys. One last open call for questions. Okay. Sweet. You guys have an amazing Wednesday night. I love you guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Love you, bro.